I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll remind put their mics on when they speak. Mine isn't working. Just want to remind everybody that the tone of our meetings will be with respect and courtesy. That's for everybody concerned. Now I'll ask you to rise for a moment of reflection, and I would ask that you reflect on those who have no joy in this season of celebration. Thank you. Please be seated. Scugog is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. Today we acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic Indigenous connection to this land and recognize the contributions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, our province, and our country as a whole. Prior to this session, Council met in Committee of the Whole in private session, and I have a motion here. I'm looking for a mover that Robert Brezina, Donovan Smith, and Frank Smith be appointed to the Committee of Adjustment, that Robert Brezina, Donovan Smith, and Frank Smith be appointed to the Property Standards Committee, that Robert Brezina, Donovan Smith, and Frank Smith be appointed to the Animal Services Committee, that Alan Honey be appointed as an alternate to Committee of Adjustment, Property Standards, and the Animal Services Committee, that Alan Honey be appointed as a fence viewer, that Gerald Whitfield be appointed as a livestock investigator, and Dale Feasby be appointed as the alternate livestock investigator, that Donovan Smith be appointed to the Durham Land Division Committee, that Mark Gibbons be appointed to the Durham Active Transportation Committee, and that Bonnie Bunting, Deborah Watson, Catherine Ann McGuigan, Mark Lewis, Donna May Ancrett, Louise Bardswitch, Colleen Simpson, and Christy Stone Kearney be appointed to the Scugog Memorial Public Library Board. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor Guido. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest in the nature thereof for this meeting? Councillor Brown? Microphone.
Usually I don't need them, I'm so loud. The item is 9.29, DEV 2018-039, the retail sale of cannabis. And my disclosure thereof is that I have shares in a medical marijuana business.
Thank you. We will note that. Any others? Okay, thank you. We will move on. Any announcements from Council? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder that Santa Claus comes to town every Thursday and Friday here downtown after school hours from 3 to 5, and Saturday from 10 till 12 and 1 till 3 until December 22nd. As well, our residents can enjoy horse and carriage rides. And this Saturday, we would like to invite all residents to come and have their photo taken with Santa Claus between 1 and 3, and that's sponsored by the Port Perry BIA, Puckrin Latreille Real Estate, and Trip Creative Photography. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guido. It's a great time of year to be in Scugog Township. Every time of year is a great day to be in Scugog Township. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to put out that if you're looking for something to buy for a hard-to-purchase for person at Christmas time, Car-Ride Sports and Rec are hosting their annual fundraising event on the 1st of February. It's a comedy hypnosis with Adam Graham, and tickets are available at this time. Cost is $25. Doors open at 7:30 and the show begins at 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Are there others? Councillor McDougall?
Something that caught my eye up in Greenbank, Naomi Bristow is performing on Saturday, December the 15th at 7 p.m. at Greenbank United, and that's through donations. And then I wanted to remind everyone to go online to the Township of Scugog website to fill out the Speak Up survey and the survey on cannabis retail sales as well. Thank you.
Mayor Drew. Thank you, Mayor Drew. I will also, as councillors mentioned, like to request public input on those 2 surveys that are online. Speak Up Scugog survey is a survey that we are requesting public input to inform the strategic planning session for council that is scheduled in January 17th and 18th. We have 186 replies to date. We're also doing a telephone poll of 300 residents, which will help inform our strategy also. And then with respect to the aforementioned public consultation with respect to cannabis retail stores in the township, there is a report on your agenda, but I did want to encourage residents also to reply to that survey. We have had an overwhelming response to date, 410 replies to date. So I think it's going to break our record on our website replies. Both surveys are available at scugog.ca/survey, so scugog.ca/surveys. Surveys are open till the end of the year. We'll also be doing what we call is a pop-up surveys. So we'll be, our communication manager will be popping up at peak hours at the library and at the Scugog Community Center. Thank you.
Any others?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I just wanted to mention that the LED streetlight replacement program is well underway, and we've got approximately 35–40% of the lights replaced at this point of the Cobra Head ones, and after that we'll do the decorative ones. The program will save us 70% in energy savings and 80% in maintenance costs for almost $200,000 a year when it's complete.
Good news. Thank you, Director Coleman. I missed Councillor Kiesebrink. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to say it was a pleasure to attend the Pine Ridge Garden Club December 4th. They had their annual AGM. The event was really well attended. We especially want to thank this group because they have taken care of the gardens at the museum, and so on behalf of the Mayor and Township, we expressed our appreciation at that event. Also want to thank our fire chief and our firefighters who, both in Port Perry and Caesarea, who actually answered an early morning call at 4:40 a.m. on November 27th. That house fire that they tackled took a couple of hours. It was a suspicious fire because it was a rainy morning, so we really are hoping that people will come forward and help to solve that situation. And we want to thank everyone for their bravery to tackle that.
Yes, Amy?
Yes, I should mention that also the library has a lot of Christmas activities happening right now. The snowflake sale is currently running, I think, until Sunday, the 16th. So if you would like to buy any crafts made by local artists and artisans, that's available. And we also currently have Bakersfield Gingerbread Village in the Kent Farndale Gallery, and that will run through to January the 2nd.
Thank you. Chief, did you have an announcement to make about your toy drive?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I do. I'd like to solicit those who are able to help us fill the fire truck in support of Operation Scugog and those less fortunate at this time, our young people here in Scugog Township. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all who are getting involved in the fire department for that initiative. It's going to make a lot of kids happy this Christmas, so thank you very much. I just wanted to also mention that we recently had our volunteer appreciation event and our staff appreciation event to recognize this Christmas season, and it was very well attended and very well done. Thank you to our staff who organized it. We do certainly appreciate all of the volunteers that have worked so hard for us over the past number of years, and certainly our staff who work hard every day, so thank you very much. So, moving on, we do have a presentation to make today, and this is kind of bittersweet. It is the retirement, announcing the retirement of our beloved Parks manager, I guess is that your official title? Retiring after over 30 years with the township. So I would like you to come forward, Tim Legier, and accept this. Perhaps all of council could come and have a photo op with Tim. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm gonna miss you, though.
Congratulations.
So, on behalf of the council and the Township of Scugog, I would like to congratulate you on your retirement from the Public Works and Parks Department as lead hand. I just read that. Your commitment and dedication over the last 30 years to the community and the Public Works and Parks Department is remarkable. Our township has benefited from your experience and leadership, and I'd like to thank you for your contributions you have made to our community. Best wishes as you start this new chapter and your well-deserved retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. No, that's good. Thank you all very much. Good.
So we are definitely going to miss Tim. He's a great person to work with. So we are also want to recognize the retirement of our arena, Todd Healy. He's been with us for over 30 years as well, I believe, and he is starting a new role today. So our next presentation is the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project Class Environmental Assessment, and I'm got Carol Coleman, our Director of Public Works and Parks. Debbie, nice to see you here. Thank you for coming. Our Water Quality Specialist with Kawartha Conservation, and who has worked really, really hard over these past few years with our Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, and it's just been invaluable. And Jeff Doucette, our geomorphologist, did I say that right? From GHD Limited, who has worked with us on this project on design. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Drew, members of council. So we're here today to present the findings for the draft Lake Scugog Enhancement Project Class Environmental Assessment. It's called the Draft Project File Report. So the presentation will go over a bit of background on the project, what the problem opportunity statement is, alternatives, how we assess and evaluate those alternatives, the consultation, the recommended solution, conclusions, next steps, and how it will all be funded. So this is a very brief background, and there's people here that know a lot more about the background than I do, but at a high level, in 2013, the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee was set up as a committee of council to find short and long-term solutions about the health of the lake. And then in January 2016, GHD was retained to undertake a design study and impact analysis for enhancements to the Port Perry Bay area. And in November 2016, council was presented with that initial concept of design, and they supported the project in principle. In September 2017, GHD was retained to undertake an environmental assessment and a preliminary design. And in January 2018, there was a memorandum of understanding signed between the Township of Scugog, Kawartha Conservation, and the Scugog Lake Stewards to work in partnership for the project. So this map shows the general study location. So it includes the boat launch area around the point of Birdseye Park, all along the shoreline of the waterfront area. This is Voss Independent Grocers, the area along the causeway, and then a distance out in the shore on each of those areas. The first step in an environmental assessment is always to identify what the problem is you're trying to solve and what opportunities are there, things that you can improve. So the overall objectives for the project were determined to be to address excessive amounts of non-native aquatic vegetation, to address accumulation of sediment and organic matter, reduce depth of water, impacted water quality in the Bay Area and in the lake in general, impacted shoreline habitats and fisheries. And some of the expected opportunities and benefits are improved stormwater management and treatment, increased fish spawning in winter and summer foraging and habitat, increased waterfowl habitat, and increased boating access and functionality for other uses such as paddling and angling. So as you can see from this, there's a lot of things that we can improve in the quality of the health of the lake. The next step in an environmental assessment is to look at a variety of alternatives. So for this project, 7 different alternatives were created, and each of them were evaluated. So I'm going to go through each of them in a high level of detail, in a high level. For any environmental assessment, the first thing you look at is do nothing. This gives you a background that you can compare all the other alternatives to. In this case, if we did nothing, the following would continue. We would continue to have contaminated sediment from stormwater directly going to the lake. The growth of invasive species would continue. The loss of aesthetic value and recreational activities as things continue the way they are today, and the lake would continue to decrease in depth, and again, the overall decline in the health of the lake. So the first solution after do nothing was dredging and hauling the material off-site. So we looked at dredging specific zones to a depth of 1.8 meters and dewatering on site, which means we would take the sediment from the bottom of the lake, find some land nearby to let it drain into water before we hauled it off-site. One of the problems with this is finding a large enough area to dewater, especially as the waterfront is all used for community and commercial purposes. And also there's a very high cost to haul that away afterwards to a landfill site or another site that would accept it. So the next alternative was looking at dredging and using the dredged material for an engineered wetland. And the first location that was looked at for the wetland was adjacent to the causeway. This is next to the Osler Marsh, which is a provincially significant wetland. So the idea was to dredge a couple areas in the lake and put it in this over here to create the wetland. One of the big drawbacks of this one was the potential impacts to Osler Marsh, and there's fish spawning zones there. So the environmental impacts of this one were not, made it a poor alternative. The next option was to dredge a smaller area and use the materials to create an engineered wetland next to the Bagwater and stormwater channel. So this is a much smaller area than was looked at for the last alternative. And this is the engineered wetland would be here. This is the Bagwater and stormwater channel comes out here between the tennis courts and the grocery store. This didn't have a significant amount of benefits with recreational because it was a small area, although it was thought that it would provide some stormwater treatment and habitat improvement. So there were some pros to this, but not as strong as the preferred alternative. The next alternative was looking at dredging larger areas and again creating an engineered wetland area next to the Bagwater and stormwater channel but also creating an offshore island or shoals. The negatives to this were they weren't sure if the island would be stable in the long term, and it would have a larger footprint and impact to the environment. Alternative 6 was looking at dredging a large area, the areas in brown, and creating a larger engineered wetland in, again, the same area at the Bagwatin Stormwater Outlet. The final alternative that was looked at was the use of benthic mats, either alone or with dredging as well. So these mats can be put down in the water, and they can help control the growth of plants at the bottom. There was some positives to this because the environmental impacts were less, but it doesn't provide any stormwater treatment, so it doesn't address all the issues that the environmental assessment was meant to. So each of them were evaluated by these 5 criteria: how effective it would be at addressing the problems and opportunities, the environmental effects, the potential short and long-term environmental effects of the project, feasibility, is it technically feasible and would the permitting agency support it, cost, the relative capital cost for each alternative, and the longer-term maintenance and monitoring costs. So after the evaluation was completed, alternative 6 was chosen as a recommended solution, which is dredging a larger area and creating a larger engineered wetland. And the reasons for this is that it will alleviate the sediment and organic matter accumulation, it mitigates stormwater inputs, it provides recreational use in aquatic and wetland habitat, and it avoids disturbing adjacent provincially significant wetland and spawning areas. In February of this year, GHD went and drilled 2 boreholes in the area of the proposed bridge for the berm, and we were surprised to find that the peat deposits here were much thicker than some of the preliminary studies suggested. So we did some additional geotechnical investigation in March, which included 8 boreholes, and they confirmed that the peat was up to 6.3 meters below the groundwater level. So the original plan to build a berm, we weren't sure if it would work, and we looked at some other alternatives to see what we could do. We also talked to a permitting agency like Parks Canada to see which options they would be most supportive of. And in the end, we found that the preferred solution would be the same, except that instead of using firm material from the lake bed to create the base of the berm, that we would need to bring imported material instead. So other than the use of imported materials, the original alternative 6 was still considered to be the preferred solution. A major part of the environmental assessment process is to consult affected stakeholders and the public. And to do this, we did a number of things. We issued a notice of project commencement and open house in November 2017. We held the open house on December 5th, 2017. And there the preliminary preferred solution was presented. We had over 60 people in attendance. There were questions about how it would be done and how it would be funded, but overall, like, I've never been to a public meeting that people were so supportive of a project in general. Like, there was a great deal of support there at that meeting. After that, we did the geotechnical work, and we made some adjustments to the preferred solution. The Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee was involved through meetings through all of that, and then in September 11th, we presented the revised preferred solution to them, and they endorsed it. And now we're here today for seeking council endorsement for alternative 6 as a preferred solution with the modifications. Again, as I said, we did receive feedback on it. The agency that provided the most feedback was the Ministry of Environment, Conservation Parks, formerly the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, and they had quite a significant amount of comments, which have all been addressed in the draft report. We did receive comments from the public. There was a lot of concern about the health of the lake, and people were very happy to see the project going forward. There were questions about if invasive species removal would continue after the project. They were concerned about flooding issues, which have been addressed. Stormwater runoff impacts to the wetland. Well, the wetland is meant to treat the stormwater runoff, so it's part of the design of the wetland. Questions about how it will be funded and who will perform the long-term maintenance of the wetland and berm. And all of these have been addressed in the report. I had a meeting myself with the Scugog float flyers. They had concerns about how the berm might conflict with the operation of their model planes, and we think we can make some adjustments to the design a bit to make sure that they still have the area that they enjoy for their model planes now. And as I said, overall there is strong support in favor of the preferred solution. So the final preferred solution involves dredging almost 7 acres of area with 25,000 cubic meters of material being dredged and placed in the engineered wetland area. It would be constructing a 245-meter long berm, be about 4 meters on top, 18 meters at the bottom, with a 3-meter trail. There would be steel pipes throughout the berm to help maintain the water balance on both sides. There would be a 12-meter wide, 0.75-meter deep channel at the center of the wetland to allow the fish to go back and forth and the water to flow from the channel. And the total area of the wetland was 12,200 square meters, and there'd be a variety of habitat there, and especially turtle habitat, to help encourage them. So should Council endorse the preferred solution today, we will then provide the report to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks for a 30-day review period. We'll finalize the project file report, issue a notice of completion, and make it available to the public for a 30-day review period. During that time period, there may be questions or comments from the public. There could be a Part 2 order request, which we'll address if they come up. Then we'll proceed with the detailed design and permitting. And the earliest start date for the project would be fall of 2019. But that depends on getting funding for the project and getting the permits that we need to do it. And just a final slide on how it's going to be funded. We estimate the cost about $3 to $4 million. It's still a very high-level estimate because we don't have the detailed design done, and we don't know exactly what the permitting agencies are going to require from us. So we'll be able to refine that further as we get the permits and as we finalize the design. There is a fundraising committee for this project, and it's made up of members from Scugog Lake Stewards with support from the township and Kawartha Conservation, and they have a plan for 3 different areas to bring funding in, including major grants, or major gifts, grants from foundations and governments, and local canvassing. And they have already been very active in providing funding. They have been funding the majority of the projects so far, and we really appreciate their assistance with that. If you have any questions, I'm here. There's Debbie Belika from Kawartha Conservation and Jeff Doucette from GHD.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do I have a mover to receive the presentation? Councillor Watton, Councillor McDougall, all in favor? That's carried. Any questions or comments on the presentation? And I'm now going to bring the report forward as well when we're finished. So, Councillor Brown?
Just a comment, first of all. 2 comments. One, thank you for your diligence. I know how hard you guys worked on this, and I know how hard you work, period. It's really necessary to get the word out to people. This is just a comment, so whatever we can do to advise them of what it's going to look like, how it's going to be, is a very saleable thing in my estimation. And I wanted to ask what the updated material for the berm base would be, so you're going to have something more solid than silt, I presume. I'm not sure what you're going to use. I just was curious as to what you'd use that for.
So I've talked to our geotechnical engineers. They've done a review of the boreholes, and they've conducted a model of the weight of the berm on that peat material that's there and how much it'll sink. So the idea is that it'll be built from shore, material would be placed on top of the existing peat there, and it'll sink over time. They estimated about 0.7 meters, so you just keep bringing in material until it stabilizes. And the material that's brought in would just be kind of native material. It could be generally a mix of sand, gravel, cobble, and silt. So as long as it's not all clay or all sand, it's generally kind of a loamy material that would be quite easy to source That's the material that would be constructed of. And it'll take time to build, because you'd construct it and it'll settle a bit, and you need to bring in more material as it compacts, just because of the material underneath is very organic and full of saturated with water, and that'll compress over time.
Further questions? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know I had spoken with Director Coleman before in regards to the option number 6, which is the recommended option. So I guess it would be towards you, Mr. Doucette, in regards to looking at option 7, which was the mats that went down. Was there ever an option that required the dredging of the area, the building of the berm, and then placing the mats down on top of that? I know it would be for an increased cost, but one of the things that came to light was one of the objectives of the excessive amount of non-native vegetation wasn't addressed in option 6, just stating that it was an unknown impact, and being that number 1 objective, is there an option that actually addresses that? Because that's, I know, as from a recreation point of view and aesthetics point of view, that's a key element to it.
Yeah, so the option 7 was there. That could be tacked onto any of the other options, technically. I know we didn't investigate it that much through in the project file report. There's not a lot of reporting on it. And that's mainly because there's not a lot known on how successful that type of technique will be in Lake Scugog. And one of the recommendations were in that section was you could do a small pilot study, either after you do the dredging or before, but you would just lay down the benthic mat, and in this case you'd want to use something that's biodegradable and not, as you often see, the black kind of material. So it'd be like a biodegradable, like a jute mat or a coir mat, and you could lay that down in a smaller area and see how that responds. Ideally, I think after if alternative 6 is eventually constructed, you'd see, okay, well, what's coming back, and where are our problem areas for the invasive species, or which areas are still having issues for interference with recreation, and could we use the benthic mats to improve some of those areas a bit more.
Thank you. Any further?
If I could, just more of, I guess a second point, but the diagrams, I'm not sure how final the diagrams are that you presented, but in the GHD limited report, it's image 4.4, it's figure 1 in the staff report, just in regards to the berm location, and how that and the dredging area, in particular the point of shallow access to the water, is the only shallow access in the area, which is just east of the playground area. And in the images and the diagrams that are provided, there's no dredging in that area, and the berm comes quite close to that area. Was there any consideration given to that is the only shallow water access, which a lot of recreation facilities or recreation activities take place, swimming, kayaking, would use that area?
So definitely the dredging area took into account all those different uses. And that area, the area in front of the berm was not dredged just to maintain, to keep shallower water in front of the berm so we don't have larger waves getting in there and attacking the berm. In front of the playground area, I can't remember if we had any comments. Do you know, Carol or Debbie?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in. I don't think the scope of that beach area was part of this project, although at the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, we have been having conversations of the beach needs attention as well. So that not being a focal point of this project, but acknowledging that it needs to be included or presented as another project.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McDougall?
Quick question. The Casimir outlet, I believe, outlets to the left side of the beach, and that was included in this project area as well. I think there was a Queen Street outlet and the Williams Creek outlet. They're all inside this project area, is that correct? Through you, Madam Mayor?
No, the Queen Street outlet is not. The outlets that are included in this project are the Bagwatting Pond outlet, the Casimir outlet, which has the highest total suspended solid loading of the catchment basins, and The independent grocery store also has an outlet. Now, they do have an oil grit separator, but those are the 3 outlets that were included in this project that are receiving direct stormwater.
Thank you.
Further? Okay, thank you. So we bring, with your indulgence, we'll bring report number 9.2.1 for discussion, and you see the recommendations before you. Everybody got that, page 53? The recommendations are that report COMS 2018-052 Lake Scugog Enhancement Project Class Environmental Assessment File Report be received. Number 2, that council endorse the preferred solutions as identified in the draft Lake Scugog Enhancement Project Class Environmental Assessment File Report. Number 3, that additional funding be approved for GHD Limited to address requests received by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks during the class environmental assessment in the amount of $9,661.50, including HST. And number 4, that additional funding be approved for a marine archaeology study, if determined to be necessary by Parks Canada, in the amount of $7,571, including HST. And number 5, that the above change orders to the contract with GHT Limited be contingent upon the transfer of sufficient funds raised by the Scugog Lake Stewards, Inc. for the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project to the Township of Scugog to cover the cost of the change orders. That is the motion. Is there a mover? We get it on the table. Councillor McDougall, Councillor Guido. Is there any discussion, questions on this report? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After discussion, or if now is the time, I would like consideration to change item number 2 in the recommendations. Since there are, it says that we endorse the preferred solutions. I think the intent should read that council endorse alternative number 6 as the preferred solution, with design modifications as indicated in section 2.3 of the report, as identified in the draft Lake Scugog Enhancement Project.
Thank you. That's an amendment. So do I have any questions, comments on the amendment? The amendment to item 2, that we identify the preferred solution. That's number 6. Any questions or comments? Okay, we have a mover. We do have a seconder for the amendment. Sorry, Councillor Guido. I'll call for a vote on all in favor of the amendment only. That's carried. On the main motion, questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Yes?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a comment in regards to this. I know that clean soil is a hot topic in this township right now, and in discussions, it's my understanding this is just a broad scope of the plan, and that when we're talking about bringing soil into the community, that the community should be aware and should be identified that all proper procedures will take place into bringing clean soil into this project.
Thank you for bringing that forward. And Director Coleman, would you like to comment on our policies and bylaws on soil?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. Through you to the councillor. Obviously, when the project that we're looking at the health of the lake, the quality of the material we bring in will be very important to the township, to Parks Canada, to Forest Conservation. All of us will be working to make sure that anything we bring in is well tested, we know the source, and it is clean soil for this project.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the recommendations on this report? Councillor Kiesbrink.
Is there any possibility of, and maybe this is not the time, I'm not sure, but to make the beach part of this solution somehow, or is that outside of the scope? Is that, because I know we're already talking about a project with funding that is significant. So it's just a question. I thought it was a fair question raised by Councillor Ross.
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I think we're much too far through this process to do that. We've set the terms of reference before. We presented to the public as this is the problem we're addressing. That's not to say that we can't look at the beach area. The Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee can continue to look at ideas and solutions for that. But I think for this specific project, it's too late in the process.
Anything further? Yes.
Sorry, I do have one more question. I think it gets back to the importance of getting people to understand what's going on. Are there plans to put signage up in the area prior to this being done so people can have a look at a huge sign that says, this is a great thing that's coming our way?
Perhaps we could turn it over to our communications person with, I think, I see her.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Brown. And it's a very simple solution. It will be a communications plan that will accompany now that we see that this is the preferred solution. My role now is to liaise with Director Coleman and Kawartha Conservation to ascertain those details and then create a communications plan to support the timely release of the information. Certainly signage is a great way to get that word out as well, so any and all suggestions will be taken.
Thank you, and that will certainly support the fundraising efforts as well, so, thank you. I know this project has taken a long time. There are a lot of requirements by different ministries and organizations that have to be met, and then, of course, there's an environmental assessment, which also takes a long time. We are thankful that it's not a full-scale environmental assessment, because that could take an extra few years. We're very grateful that it's a what is it, whatever you call it,
Schedule B.
Schedule B, environmental assessment, which does not take quite as long. But there has been a tremendous amount of testing, testing of the depth, testing of the quality of the material for contaminants and so on, and all of this takes a lot of time. So thank you very much to the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee. Thank you very much to these three people and the lake stewards who have taken such an interest and have worked so hard on this project. So, I'm ready for the motion. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We're now moving to the consent agenda, and just a reminder that the first part, the adoption of the minutes, is for approval. That's 9.11 and 9.12. The second part is advisory committees and boards minutes, and we would be receiving them. That is the recommendation. And 9.2 reports, we would the motion would be to endorse the reports as recommended. I have a number of them pulled. I've got 9.1.4. 9.2.5, 9.2.6, 9.2.8, 9.2.9, 9.2.11, and 9.2.14, and 9.2.18. Are there any others to be pulled? Oh, okay, and 9.2.6. Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss that one? I guess I did, sorry, 9.2.6. And pull the bylaw as well, which is 967.18. Okay, are there any others that need to be pulled? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Councillor Guido, Councillor Watton, all those in favor? Okay, so what we have approved, and this is for the benefit of those watching, are the minutes of council and the inaugural meeting, the BIA minutes of September the 11th, the library board minutes, well, of course, the Lake Scugog Enhancement Plan, exercise of delegated authority and council election process, the meeting schedule for 2019, accessibility initiatives that were in place for the 2018 municipal election, procedure bylaw review and update, property tax adjustments, interim tax levy, tax bill printing, capital project closing report, 2009 budget survey results, operating results up to November 16th, 2018, heritage designation of 274 North Street. Is that it? And all of the bylaws except for the one that was indicated, the fees and charges bylaw. Okay? So we will now, did we get a vote on that? Okay. We will now move to 9.1.4, and that was pulled by Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just I was wondering if our Director of Finance could just give us an update. I know our Port Perry BIA treasurer was indicating that there had been an issue with an HST rebate being applied to the wrong account, and I was just wondering if our Director could just give us a quick update. I know they've been working very hard to resolve that matter, so just to let us know where things stand.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kiesebrink. So this is an issue that has stemmed actually since the beginning of the year. My manager of finance has been working with the CRA and has been in constant communication with them. There was an allocation, one of our payments went to the wrong account, and CRA in error posted it to the wrong account and then said we were deficit in another account, so then pulled back our HST returns as well as the returns of the BIA and Green Bank because they all have the same business number. So what happens is the CRA will start pulling from the first accounts that submit claims to. So we have been working diligently to try and get resolution to this as quickly as possible, but unfortunately things don't work that quickly in the federal government, so we are hopeful that we'll have some sort of answer later this week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Motion to receive? Councillor Guido, Councillor Watton, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, next item is 9.2.5, and that was pulled by Councillor Guido, and that is on page 441.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just getting to my notes. I'm going to, regarding the two committees that are not proceeding with this term of council, the Seniors Advisory Committee and the Waterfront Phase 2, as far as the seniors notification goes, what type of dialogue occurred with the Seniors Club to make them aware, or pardon me, not the Seniors Club, what type of dialogue occurred with the Seniors Committee, the existing members, to advise them that this was not occurring, and are they okay with the Advisory Committee no longer continuing?
I have asked staff to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The committees were not consulted in that. The decision to establish committees is the decision of Council. So those recommendations are being brought forward to Council for consideration, and Council will decide what committees to appoint, and then we'll move forward with advising any of our previous members and so on and so forth.
Further?
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As you're well aware, Scugog has such a very high population of seniors. I appreciate that our last term of council we had difficulties getting members to join the committee, and that was probably one of the reasons that went into this. I would just hope that our seniors community doesn't feel as though their opinions no longer count to this council, because I know that they do.
Thank you for bringing that forward. I did have an informal discussion with the president of the Seniors Club. They have over 700 members, and I asked her if they would be willing to give advice to council on things that they would like to bring forward, and also would they be willing for council to ask them for advice, and she was delighted to take on that task. So that was a very informal discussion, but I think that we would be reaching 700 people to help us make decisions on matters that concern seniors.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And then, the other item that I just would like to point out, and I'm glad to see that in the report, is when it's talking about our committee compositions, that we do have one council member on there. I know some of the committees last time, there was multiple of us on there, and it really did bog down moving forward of matters. I'm also glad to hear that what we're stressing on page 443 of our council agenda, or 2.3, is that there's subject matter experts that we're asking to apply to these committees. We do have a wealth of knowledgeable residents, and I hope that that knowledge is brought forward to these committees so that we do have subject matter experts that are applying for these positions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, and just further to the conversation, I know that I've had several emails from past committee members on a couple of the committees where they may have overlapped with another committee, and there was concern whether they would be able to attend these meetings or contribute, and in consultation with our clerk, he assured me that if you were a former committee member and were not chosen on that particular committee, you are still welcome to attend, and you are still welcome to ask to be put on the agenda if you have items to share, and the same if you are, if there's interest between two committees. So I think I concur with Councillor Guido. I think the report is good, and I think having only one council representative at a time will perhaps open up the discussions from our volunteers in a more robust way. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'll read the recommendation. I should have had a motion so that the report Corp. 2018-015, 2018-2022 advisory committees of council be received, that the following advisory committees of council be established for the 2018 to 2022 term of council. And I'll list them here. Scugog Accessibility Advisory, Blackstock Recreation Complex Advisory, Economic Development Advisory, Environmental Advisory, Grants Committee, Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, Heritage Advisory, Housing Advisory, and Tourism Advisory Committee. Thirdly, that only one council representative and an alternate be appointed to each advisory committee. Number 4, that staff commence the recruitment and interview process for members of the advisory committees. Number 5, that persons volunteering to sit on an advisory committee be appointed to one committee only and not appointed to multiple advisory committees. Number 6, that advisory committee minutes be placed on the council agenda to be received for information. And number 7, that all of the necessary bylaws to implement the above noted directions be forwarded to council for adoption. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Guido. Seconder? Councillor Brown. Questions or comments on this report? All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. The next item is 9.2.6, and it's on page 452. I will read the recommendation. This is the strategic plan directions to this is the, what is the name of it? Proposed fees and charges, sorry. And the recommendation is that report CORP 2018-016, proposed 2019 fees and charges be received, and that the fees and charges outlined in the bylaw appended as attachment 1 to report CORP 2018-016 be approved and forwarded for adoption. And that was pulled by Councillor Guido. And, yes, Councillor Guido and Councillor Keisebring. You were first, Councillor Keisebring. Do you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With respect to the Scugog Arena rental rates, in the report...
Councillor Keisebring, could you give us a page number, please? Or is there one?
I have... It's attachment 7, community services, recreation and culture fees.
Okay.
So, in looking at all of the Scugog rental rates that we currently have and looking at the average of other municipalities, pretty much right across the board, we're already, our rates are quite a bit higher, our 2018 fees. So, for example, our youth primetime statutory holiday premium rate is already $213, whereas the average of the other municipalities is $123.88 per hour. So, and that doesn't include the surcharges that are already added on top of the fee plus the taxes. In the case of like our adult primetime weekend rates, the average of the other municipalities is $207.72 an hour. We're already, without raising our rates, we're already at $215.23 an hour. So just looking down the columns for our Scugog ice time, I really feel that I respect, like most of the proposed fees I think are in keeping, but specifically ice time for the Scugog Arena, I have a concern. I really feel that our rates are already good, and I don't know that it would warrant that they be raised again. I know that they were already raised, I believe, in 2016. And moving on to, one other point I wanted to make is that on the Oshawa, one of the figures that's used as an example is the Oshawa rate. It's proposed at $206.04 for the Oshawa Arena. But the Oshawa Arena, their prime time is in the summer. So we're not really comparing apples to apples because our arena is open in the winter through to April. So if we compared the same rates for Oshawa for the same time period, the rate is actually in Oshawa is $155.74, not $206.04. So we're already charging $215.23 for the same time period that the Oshawa Arena is charging $155.74, and they do not charge a surcharge in the winter. They do charge an Oshawa surcharge in the summer. So I just have a concern that we want our community to use our arena. If we, in thinking in terms of business, if you price yourself out of your market, you lose your market, and we have incredible arenas. So that's one, I know I only have 5 minutes, so that's one concern I have. For the Blackstock Arena, in speaking with the curling club, the Blackstock Curling Club, and also the skating club, they gave me examples of their contracts, so they're already spending for their season $7,467.90. They've already gone through a previous increase to match, as they were told, to match the rates of the arena in Uxbridge. But our arena isn't the same size, regulation size. So my concern, I've heard from Jenny McCready, who is the president of the Blackstock Skating Club, and she gave me a breakdown. I have copies for everyone if they would like copies, but they have 35 skaters. They're 8 to 11-year-old girls. They're already paying $101.29 an hour plus the surcharge. So their current rates are already getting them to $7,467 for the year. So that increase might not seem like a lot, $3 an hour, but the net effect for them is that they're up to $70. And they're so borderline right now. They already rely on funds from Bagwading Association, and also they get a $1,000 grant from the township. So if we increase the rates, then they may have to come back and ask us for more money for a grant. So, and I've also heard from the curling club, they're already paying, they feel that the rates that they're currently paying are adequate. So I guess the only other thing is our current website, the rates that are stated on our website right now don't match what our current rates are, so our manager has advised me that they will be fixing our website so that the rates are accurate. As when you look on our township website, you can see the correct rates as to what you would be charged to rent ice time. So I thank our manager for that. I think I would like to make a motion that we accept everything, but just not the increase for the two arenas.
you can remove that, or we can approve the rest of the motion
Okay.
and remove that. But I would ask our manager, Craig Belfry, to come forward and address some of those questions. And I'm sure that was your same questions, was it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That and ball diamonds.
And the ball diamonds. Okay, we'll let you address ball diamonds in a minute.
That would be somebody else. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, that was a lot. I'll try and get through them. To start off with Port Perry, with the Port Perry Arena and its ice rates. Port Perry ice rates were changed a few years ago when the North Durham Hockey Association formed, the amalgamation of Port Perry and Uxbridge. At that time, council decided to increase the rates. We had traditionally always sat in the middle of the pack in the Durham region, but with the amalgamation of the two hockey programs, Uxbridge was always at the top of the grid. So it was decided at that time to bring it closer, but not in full towards Uxbridge. But because North Durham now, they rent Port Perry and Uxbridge at the same, so they're paying that amount of ice in Uxbridge, at Uxbridge's rate. So council felt that if you can rent that ice over there, you can rent ours at the same price. It wasn't quite the same price, we were about $6 cheaper at the end of the day. Uxbridge always raises theirs 3% a year, so we're in a matching pattern with them now. If they're gonna pay that much over there, then they can pay it over here. They also, you have to take into account that the minor sports organizations also charge more for their hour of ice than what we charge to their users. So when you're playing a rep hockey, you're paying an extra $25 to $50 an hour to your organization on top of what you're paying us. So that fee's included within individual registration fees. For Blackstock was raised 3% back in the day. They were never raised to match Uxbridge or anything to do with the amalgamation. The rates have always been the same, just the annual 3% increase. We do that annual increase just to match operational demands for hydro and other things like that. We have gone back to the groups. We recognize that, but individual groups have to charge what it costs to operate their organizations, so whether their fees go up is not in our control, or how much they have to pay to their own memberships. They have to adjust that to match what the actual ice rates are. So whether curling goes up 3%, it's also curling shifted around the last couple of years due to demand of ice and actual usage. The skating club, we try and be cognizant of all our users, but we can't get into the aspect of picking certain rates for certain users and upping and down. Like, it just opens up too many doors across the board. I think I got all of your questions.
Councillor Kiesebrink, are your questions answered? Maybe you don't like the answer, but were they answered?
Yeah.
Absolutely. My assumption is not that, we can't address an individual user, but on the other hand, it's important to take into account the impact of our decisions here on the public that we represent. And the information that I received from the Blackstock Skating Club was not the dollar value of their total program. It was just the fees that they do pay to the township with the surcharges. So that was the only figures that we were discussing. I guess my feeling still remains that our Scugog Arena rates, given what is paid in the other municipalities, that we are already really at the high end, so I still feel the same way.
I would say that
Yeah.
the North Durham, the hockey rate is at that, but the skating club in Port Perry, the Mojacks, they don't pay that rate. Council kept that rate lower because it wasn't their desire to amalgamate, so the amalgamation rate only applies to the hockey users. So Mojacks Skating Club in Port Perry have remained lower than what everybody else is paying, so.
The proposed rate increase was youth prime time, so
This year it's a 3% increase across the board for everybody's rates.
Right.
In the past, there was 2 years ago, I'd say it was about a 14% increase for the youth hockey rate, and then last year was around 6%. So, there was a significant jump then, but right now it's at 3% across the board for everybody. So we've sort of flatlined it now to keep everybody there, but we are unique compared to other municipalities because of this North Durham ice rate. Even Uxbridge charges everybody one flat rate, but we are unique where different groups have different rates at the Port Perry Arena, so.
How is the school rate determined?
The school rate's, schools run it during the
Is it
daytime.
just for
so-
schools?
Yeah, it's just for schools.
So it's not an age thing?
No.
Okay.
CAO would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. Just further, just wanted to remind council that we're moving to more cost recovery at our arena, and we're still not at, and Mr. Belfry could remind me the percentage, but there's a percentage point that's industry standard that the other municipalities in Durham work towards. We're still quite below that cost recovery. We know that we don't want to charge for 100%, but we want to hit that sweet spot on cost recovery, and we're not there yet. And can you comment on that? And then I have just a couple other comments if I could.
The industry standard's around 60%. Some go as high as 75%. We're sitting around 58, 59. We're getting closer. We crept right up in the last couple of years, so we were significantly lower before that. So we're pretty much on the industry standard now of 60% rate recovery. So.
Thank you. If I could, Mayor Drew. The other thing I think that the Manager Belfry had mentioned is where the hockey clubs are amalgamated, Uxbridge and Port Perry, you have Uxbridge citizens paying a lower rate to play hockey in Port Perry, and Scugog youth are paying a higher rate in Uxbridge. So we're trying to sort of harmonize that also. And then finally, I just wanted to, remind council that, our goal has been, and of course to hit that sweet spot, as you had said, Councillor, that, where we don't overcharge with our comparators, but to hit that sweet spot where we maximize our non-tax revenue. If we can maximize our non-tax revenue and be competitive, that's a lesser hit on the taxpayer in general. So the efforts of the annual review of fees and charges are to slowly move to that spot where, we're competitive, but maximizing those charges.
Thank you. Anything further? I'll get you. Just
through
a moment.
Madam Mayor.
No, just a moment. We got, I was saying I got your name. That's what I meant.
I'm sorry.
Anything further, Councillor Keysbrink? Okay. Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Mr. Belfry, while you're here, I'll address the user group fees, and then I do have some other questions on there. I know annually we have user group meetings. During those meetings, was the increase or proposed increase discussed with both the ball clubs, the hockey or the arena users, and any other groups whose fees would be impacted by this?
Through the Mayor to Councillor, I can only speak to the ice users.
Okay.
I do those meetings. We do tell them what we're anticipating to bring forward at each meeting, so I do tell them back then I was anticipating a 3% increase I would bring forward.
And North Durham representative was there?
Yep.
Okay, may I ask, and perhaps this is for our Director of Communication, last time that we increased our fees, the way it was communicated to the North Durham minor hockey community was significantly different than really what we were trying to achieve here. Perhaps we can communicate the reasoning for the increase to North Durham Hockey so that the members in that organization are aware. There was a lot of finger pointing to the township last time when ideally this had to do with an amalgamation that most parents we're not necessarily in favor of anyways. That's a whole other topic. Yep. Okay. So who is the user group owner for the Ball Diamonds? Do we have meetings with them?
I believe they do. Director Coleman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, there are user groups meetings for those. I believe that the one for 2018 hasn't yet been held. We were trying to schedule it, and anyways, for various reasons, it hasn't been scheduled yet, but it will happen shortly, and we will inform them of the changes then.
The only reason I ask is, those of us from the past council will remember that we did have a delegation done here from someone from the Ball organization, where they outlined all of their wish list of deficiencies that our fields have, including, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but lighting, parking, safety of there's a plethora of issues. I'm just wondering how they're going to receive a 3% increase when there are bare minimals that they were looking for us to help with improving. Perhaps during this user group meeting that will happen, there can be a dialogue where fundraising on their end can occur, and we can get a plan to get our ball diamonds up to a usable standard if they're not. And I don't play ball, so I'm not aware if they are or aren't, but I know they did have that feedback. Madam Mayor, I have a few other questions on other topics that aren't yours, Craig. On page 3 of 14 of the report for the Development Services sign fees, the portable A-frame sign permits outside of the HCD, am I correct to understand that today we don't have a fee for those signs, and are they just sandwich board signs? Is that what we're referring to, the A-frame signs? And I'm not sure, is that Director Heritage did the question?
Director Heritage. Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. What page is it in the agenda?
It's on page 454. 54. It's also on that one, too.
2.5, right?
454, right here.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, it's indicated in the report. We're slightly increasing the cost of those signs to be in line with, we keep a close eye on what Uxbridge is charging, as well as the average of the other municipalities.
Okay, may I just ask a question about that? Do we actively, I guess police is the incorrect terminology, but how do we ensure that businesses that have these A-frame signs actually have a permit or have paid the fees to have them installed?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, for the most part, it's based on a complaint basis. If we receive a complaint from an individual, then we can certainly look into it to see whether we have issued a permit for such a sign.
Thank you.
And at the same time, our bylaw enforcement officers do, on many occasions, patrol the municipality, so they can pick that up as well.
Thank you. And my last question, Madam Mayor, is in respect to the taxi cab fees. We now have an Uber here in Port Perry. We have one Uber in Port Perry. Would they fall under the taxi cab fees, or would they be a category all on their own? I'm not sure who.
Who can answer that one? Mr. Heritage. Director Heritage?
Sorry, Kevin.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Up until now, I wasn't aware that we did have Uber operating in the municipality. That's something that we can definitely look into.
Okay, thank you. It is new, and there is one individual that we have in town. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, if I can, that we're still losing money on Arena Ice. Would that be accurate? And if so, what's the percentage that we're losing money on, more or less? Is it 30%, 35%?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I wouldn't classify it as losing money. I would classify it as service we're providing. If you're looking at actual cost, most recreation facilities, arenas, pools, whatever, have a value placed on it, how much revenue versus tax base that you look at. So we run about 60/40 right now, 60% revenue recovery, and 40% on the tax base.
So would it be fair to say that the township subsidizes to the degree of 40% the cost of arena ice?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor McDougall?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was looking at page 465, 466, with regards to site alteration permits and fill testing, additional inspections. I'm just wondering if, it seems we deal a lot with kind of semi-contentious fill issues, and I'm wondering if, for example, at the bottom, we have a cost recovery for damages to township-owned property, but that's not actually in the site alteration permit section. So if we have a road damaged, is there a way that we can easily recover that? I know that for fill operations, it seems that are over 500 cubic meters, we have the opportunity to write in the site alteration agreement, you know, what we want for securities. But under 500 meters, I don't know if we have that opportunity.
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. At this point, we don't have any mechanisms available to recover road damage for less than 500 cubic meters. It also can be challenging to prove who damaged the road necessarily. It would be a difficult thing to prove.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it just seems that we have a lot of staff time that gets allocated to dealing with these measures, so I'm just trying to see if we can come up with a way through our fees and services to actually get funds back to recover that time. Thank you.
Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could, I'd just like to have an explanation of the building permit fee increase, the minimal increase of 8.4%. I know that we are trying to achieve fee for services, but I also know that there has been much criticism of all our charges, and with a goal for affordable housing and so on and so forth. I'd just like to have just clarification why this one seems to me to be fairly high at 8.4%.
CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. Yes, assisting our previous council members will remember that this review was completed last year, the spring, I believe, of 2018. So just to review that, what transpired, and this bylaw is now in place, is that about every 5 or 6 years, the municipality reviews their building permit fees, and the Building Code Act indicates that the municipality should charge fees so that the fees generally cover the cost of the service that's being provided, and the fees aren't to be used for anything but that service. And in addition to that are to establish a reserve fund so that in years where development activity is low, that the reserve fund would cover that reduced fee level. Therefore, we wouldn't have to draw from the taxes to pay for the building area to get over that hump. So, a detailed analysis was carried out about the cost of the service, and it was determined that in order to compensate for the service and to have a reasonable reserve fund established, I can't recall the number off the top of my head, that this increase would be needed. I do want to assure Council that a full public consultation was involved. In fact, we had meetings with builder-developer groups in this room, and we did not receive any objections to the rate. They understood that this is the cost of doing business, and that if the cost wasn't on the permit, then the cost would have to be paid for through the tax levy. So, maybe, I don't know if that answers all your questions, Councillor Watton, but that's how we got to that, and these fees are in effect. It's just indicating that this happened last year, there was a substantive increase, and we haven't had, any, complaints that I'm aware of about the fees, since that increase went in effect.
So, then I'm not clear on what's expiring in 2019. Are we, in 2019, going to 8.4 increase, or are we going to have to review it again in 2019?
Through you, Mayor Drew, to the
It's
council.
item 2.3.
Yes,
Okay.
item 2.3, the first part is with respect to planning fees. So it's just reminding council that planning fees are self-indexed. So planning fees every year go up on the CPI. And so at the end of 2018, it'll go up. And then that bylaw that was passed by council expires in 19. We'll revisit that with council for 2020. And then, the other is just the building permit fees, as I mentioned.
Further, Councillor Watton?
I would like to know how much of that 8.4 goes to reserve, but I don't need to know that at this point in time. And I just have one other comment or question. The Blue Box increase, who pays the Blue Box increase, and, like, what's that for?
To you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Watton. So, we are purchasing blue bins to resell them to the public. And we're purchasing from Miller Waste, and it came to my attention that we were providing them at a loss. So this is just a cost recovery.
If I could, Mayor Drew, and the amount that goes to reserve changes from year to year, and the treasurer does report on that annually to council. So it is a number that you'll see come forward.
Anything further? Well, this has been very good discussion, because this is a huge item, and it's important that we all have an understanding. So I have read the motion. I believe we have a mover and a seconder. We don't have a mover and a seconder. Sorry about that. Okay, the motion is that report CORP 2018-016, proposed 2019 fees and charges be received, and that the fees and charges outlined in the bylaw appended as attachment 1 to report CORP 2018-016 be approved and forwarded for adoption. Do I have a mover? Councillor Brown? Councillor McDougall? Questions or comments? All those in favor? 1, 2, 4. Against? Are you understanding?
Pardon me, Madam Mayor, I was under the impression that Councillor Keys-Brink had made a separate motion or an adjustment.
She did not make an
my
amendment.
apologies.
I offered it. If you want to make an amendment,
I would like to make an amendment that we accept that we accept everything except for the ice fees.
and that is
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, now, is it the arena fees that you want to
I'd really
remove?
I'd like to see the arena fees stay.
All of them?
They've already been increased. I'd like to see them stay, yeah.
Mr. Clerk, how would you suggest this be handled? The amendment would be?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. What you would need to specify is which rates you want to remain the same as the 2018 rates. I'm making that assumption. If it's all the recreation rates, or if it's just, a group of such, if it's the ones under entitled ice rates, you'd have to specify which ones you'd like to remain the same.
Why don't we take this opportunity to take a 10-minute break? You can work that out, Councillor Keys-Brink. We have been meeting for 2 hours, And our recording secretary should have a bit of a break. Her fingers must be numb by now. So we'll have a 10-minute break. We will recess until 3:05, and I ask you to be prompt, and we'll have a recess. Okay, we're ready to get back. Mr. Clerk, if, Councillor Kieserbrink, do you have your amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to propose that the fees and the charges as outlined in the bylaw, appended as Attachment 1 to report CORP 2018-16 be approved and forwarded for adoption. Save and accept the adult primetime weekend, youth primetime statutory holiday premium, youth primetime weekends all day, weekdays 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. for minor hockey, and the adult primetime statutory holiday premium rates for the Scugog Arena, so just those rates, and also for the Blackstock Arena, all of the ice rental rates, that they remain at their 2018 rates. Thank you.
Pardon? Need a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Watton, discussions on the amendment? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask Craig, will there be any significant negative impacts to the operations of the arena should this 3% not occur?
Through the mayor to councillor, will obviously be a reduction in revenue. I would have to actually get that list and look at it in depth, but if you're not dealing with adult prime rates and youth prime rates, then that's your core revenue generation, and then you're going to fall that much farther down the ladder when it comes to ice rates. Like, as operation costs increase, we know we'll have staffing costs as per collective agreement bargaining that comes up. We know we'll have hydro, insurance, gas costs that go up every year. So, yeah, it would have an impact. So.
Further?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While Councillor Kieserbrink, I fully appreciate the need to not increase user fees as a parent who pays this for minor hockey. I have difficulties voting in favor of this without knowing if there will be a significant impact on the operations of the arena.
I would also add that if rates are frozen in one area, I'm sure the community may have questions come back as to why rates are going up or is okay to be raised for ball users, recreation camp programs, and things like that. We're always very careful of cause and effect with our rates and how the community will react to how our rates change, and been very careful not to increase when other groups are being increased. So, and the effect that it has on that,
So in other words, that if I got this on, because my light doesn't work, so I don't know if it's on. It's on? Okay. So the 3% that you've done across the board, basically that is to cover the increase in costs of staffing and gas, whatever, so on and so forth. Okay.
Yeah, we're not out to make money, or because it is a subsidized facility, so it's trying to maintain that subsidy and bring us closer to that level we talked about earlier, and not falling down further if we don't move with the increases, and making it equal too. Like we already know Uxbridge is at 3% increase. We know they approved that last year, so for this year, so we know they're moving. So we know that group is moving towards that already to pay that in Uxbridge. So
further, Mr. Belfry, I believe you said that we're probably at 58% cost recovery now, and so that will put us further behind, like more like 56%, 55%, whatever.
It would reduce. It'd be a significant calculating on the revenues we bring in, so we could be 30, 50,000, depending on, I'd have to review all the lines, but that's how much revenue we could drop off, so.
And the property taxpayer would make that up?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Does everybody understand the amendment and the ramifications of that amendment? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, do we have anything that would just say that, I know this gets reviewed annually, but do we have a bylaw or a policy or anything that it would just be like the, relative to the CIP? Like, could we have something like that so that, you know, then all users would be aware of, you know, the increases that would be expected, at least until such a time that we did get to the point of whatever we decided was the cost recovery portion that we would want. I'm just putting it out there, but I think it's maybe something that would be worthy of consideration. I'm not asking for that to be part of the motion today, but I just think it might be something worthy of consideration in the future.
Our clerk and then our CAO. Our CAO and then our clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. That's a very good suggestion, and I think that I think this increase gets us to where we want to be in that regard, and then a cost of living increase on an annual basis would be the way to go. And we could definitely bring that forward in next year's report.
And I would presume that if there's any anomalies in any of the services that we provide, that would be addressed too. So it might be a lowering or an increase more than the cost of living, depending on our cost to provide the service. And I'm not talking specifically about arena rates or anything like that. I'm talking about maybe sign bylaws or whatever.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. Yes, and then you can see from this report, it's a very comprehensive report. Staff have compared our rates to the other municipalities, and we will do that on an annual basis, and we'll look for those anomalies.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to add one small thing, just in terms of Councillor Watton's suggestion. Our fire chief has done something similar with regards to his rates, and he's matched them to the MTO rates. So you're already seeing that within our bylaw, something similar.
Are there any other questions or comments on the amendment? Do you want to wrap up, or do you want to wait for any other questions? Okay, any other questions? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is it possible to have the fees read out again as to which standing pat, just to catch up, just so I can refer them?
Okay.
From Councillor Keith-Brink's her amended motion.
Can you repeat them, please, Councillor Keith-Brink?
So it's just the youth prime time, weekends all day. Our current rate is $184.51. The average of other municipalities is $163.87. It's the youth prime time. The average of other municipalities is $123.88, and ours currently is $213.84. The youth non-prime time, just to keep it the same, or sorry, that wasn't the one, apologies. The adult prime time, the average is $207, ours is currently $215, so to keep it the same. And then the Black Sock ones was just all the ice time, just to keep it the same. Thank you.
That answer your question, Councillor Ross?
It does. Just a question and just some discussion. In speaking over the break we had, the youth prime time, as it's labeled, of minor hockey, which is the proposed fee is going up to $190. It's my understanding that that is for the North Durham minor hockey group, whereas the other youth prime time group is other residents and the school groups are at a lower rate. Councillor Keith-Brink, through the mayor, are you not recommending the school rate? Are you saying that the school rate will be increased by 3%?
Councillor Kesebrink?
I apologize to everyone. Now understand I should have had my motion drafted in advance to save confusion. I do apologize to Mayor and Council for that. Craig, could I just ask, the youth primetime weekend, is that the one that is the one you were referring to, the hockey group?
Through the mayor, the councillor, the youth primetime weekends and weekday evenings, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., the minor hockey, the first one on our Scugog Arena, that's the North Durham rate and the Central Ontario Wolf rate.
Okay.
The next one under that, the youth primetime weekends and weekdays 4 to 11, is for the skating club and the Mojacks.
Okay.
Further, Councillor Ross?
Sorry, just to Councillor Kesebrink. So can you just confirm that the school rate as shown on the chart, you would like that in your motion, that's included in the fees staying as they are, or that's an increased fee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that should be included as well.
That's included in your amendment, but it's not listed in your amendment?
Is that what you're saying? Oh. Yes, please, it should be included.
Okay. Got that, Mr. Clerk? Youth primetime for Scugog, is that the appropriate one? Is that?
I have youth primetime minor hockey, youth primetime other residents, youth primetime statutory holiday. There's a special school group rate of 90, it's being proposed as 9406, which was just what the question was about. And then I have the adult prime and the adult prime statutory.
Okay. Are you clear with that, Councillor Kesebrink? Okay, Councillor Watton, are you in agreement with that slight change in the amendment? Okay. Any, further?
Pardon me, could we just have the motion that we're about to vote on, could we just have it read?
Yes.
Can we have it read again, please?
Councillor Kesebrink, could you read your amendment again? Just the amendment.
That the fees and charges outlined in the bylaw appended as attachment 1 to report corporate 2018-016 be approved and forwarded for adoption, save and accept the adult primetime weekend, the youth primetime statutory holiday premium, the youth primetime weekends all day, and the adult primetime statutory holiday premium rate, and the school rate for the Scugog Arena, and for the Blacksock Arena, all of the ice rental rates remain at the 2018 rates. Thank you.
One of the problems I see with this is that we have no idea what the financial impact is on that amendment. So I will leave that with you for your consideration as you vote on this amendment. So, anything further on the amendment? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To your point that you just made, knowing that we don't want to delay the entire passing of the motion, is it possible to take the ice rinks that are in question out of this and send them back to staff to get the numbers as to what Councillor Kesebrink's amendment would actually mean in a dollar value?
Mr. Clerk, how will we manage this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. Absolutely, you can do that. And want to correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but what I'm hearing is you want to pass the rest and refer the items listed by Councillor Kesebrink to staff for a financial analysis. Is that correct? Councillor Ross?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct.
So we would have an amendment to the amendment. No? Just that we refer it back, no? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. With the agreement of the mover and seconder, they can change their amendment to say exactly what you just said, in terms of that those rates listed, as we've listed them, be referred back to staff for a report back on a financial analysis by, and then you would state when you would like those referred back, and with the approval, obviously, of the mover and seconder, then council could vote on that part of it.
Okay, Councillor Kiesebrink, is that something you would like to do? Councillor Watton, as a seconder? Yes. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I just wanted to, there might be an opportunity for the treasurer to speak. The deferral will result in the deferral to the end of January, which is the next council meeting, and we are in the middle of the budget process, and these revenues do impact the budget, and they impact our analysis of the budget. Prefer to make that decision today.
Councillor Watton.
And I would, my comment would have also been, it will not allow, like, our users to know where they're at, moving forward. So, mind you, I think most of the fees have been looked after for the winter season of 2019. So if we did, if I may to you, Craig, if we do, ask for that report, it would only impact the 2019 fall season, 2020 winter season. Would that be a correct assumption?
Through the mayor, councillor, yeah, the contracts for all the groups are signed right now till the end of February, and then March, because with minor hockey, it's based on playoffs.
Okay, so just to qualify that these fees are for the 2019-2020 season.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Kiesebrink, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Watton, are you in agreement with that?
Sure.
With a referral?
No, they're saying different things.
No, with no referral? Okay, all right. Everybody understand? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? That motion is defeated. All those in favor of the main motion, as is? Sorry? Oh, did I not get a mover and seconder? Councillor Watton and Councillor Guido. It's getting late. Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Good discussion. All right, and now we're moving on to the strategic plan update process. Councillor Guido, you have pulled this. It's on page 510.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe my question is, and apologies while I'm getting to my question, but it's in the report, and I will get you the exact page in a moment. It refers to 300 sample residents that will be participating in a telephone poll. It's on page 520 of our agenda. How are we selecting those 300 sample residents?
Ms. Bowers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Guido. We have solicited a vendor called Telepoll, and they acquire the sample list of phone numbers for the Scugog area. There's a process. We don't see those numbers. We don't vet them in any way. It's a contract that we enter in with Telepoll that they will give us results based on those. We have a bit of a geographical area, but we won't have specific numbers, provided to us.
So now that now that a lot of residents have taken away their home line and have moved to cell phones, are we even limiting the amount of people that could potentially be polled?
I appreciate that, through you, Madam Mayor. I asked the same question. The answer that was given to me is that for a population of 22,000 approximately, a good survey, whether that be hard copy, digital, or telephone, you want a sampling of at least 500 people. And that she assured me that even though people have moved to cell phones, correct, that she was still able to provide a 300 sample, no problem. I asked about cell phones. She said that they can also provide samples for cell phone users. It's just tricky because you could live in Scugog but work in Toronto and have your Toronto cell phone, therefore you're excluded from maybe the sampling, or vice versa. Maybe you work in Scugog, not sure how common that is, but it could be vice versa, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a recommendation that report CORP 2018-018 strategic plan process be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Watton, Councillor McDougall. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. Next item is 9.2.9, retail sale of cannabis. And my numbering is different from the electronic version, so I can't tell you what number it is. 5 what? 23. 523. I got 514. Okay. The recommendation is that report DEV 2018-039 retail sale of cannabis information report be received, and that a staff report with a recommendation to either permit or prohibit the retail sale of recreational cannabis in the Township of Scugog be forwarded to council prior to the provincial deadline of January 22nd. So all we're doing really is receiving this and gathering information. Do I have a mover? Councillor McDougall? Councillor Watton? Questions or comments? Rob, did you want to make a, did you want to have a highlight anything? Or Director Heritage? No? Okay. Questions or comments? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on, let me find the page for...
I just want to remind everybody that Councillor Brown has a conflict on this and will not be participating in the discussion or voting.
Under the, on page 528, under the proposed policy regulations, it says per the AGCO's guidelines, you know, we can permit them, you know, and establish a policy statement identifying specific or significant locally sensitive land uses. I just wondered, and this is just for general comment, it's, I mean, recognizing that nobody seems to know really what direction this is going to go. It says libraries, community centers, and parks. So municipalities we could establish that it wouldn't be allowed if a retail storefront would not be allowed in our downtown core. Are we able to do that? Should we opt in? Like, or, because throughout this, it lists a whole bunch of different, you know, areas that it could quite well be put in. So when it says that we could create a policy, are they referencing like a distance policy, i.e. from a park, or are they referencing that we could potentially say, no, we do not want it, a storefront in our heritage district, for example?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. The policy statement that is referred to on page 528 of the report is a statement that municipalities could prepare that identify significant locally sensitive land uses, that a municipality would have to argue that in the public interest, a retail facility should not be permitted in close proximity to these uses. That argument would have to be put forward to the AGCO in response to the circulation of an application for a storefront retail cannabis use. The only distance regulation that has been passed by the provincial government to this date, or to date, is the 150-meter separation from a school.
Right, so if we did determine we didn't want it in our heritage district, we would have to come up with a very valid argument saying why. And then we would have to hope they would rule in favor of that. Is that, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct. The area that you refer to in the downtown does permit retail uses, and a cannabis retail outlet is permitted as of right within that area, subject to applicable law.
Thank you, that's how I understood it. And further, Madam Mayor, if I may, I just would like to make one comment. I think it's great that we are doing the survey online, and it's great that we're going to do some pop-ups. And I understand from our CAO, as he mentioned earlier today, that we have a great response online already. I would like to suggest that perhaps we could provide some print copy to some various locations, given that I think we have several demographics here that may not be responding to an online one. And so if I could, I'd just like to put it out there that perhaps it could go to the seniors, perhaps it could go to also the grocery stores, and sorry for our communications manager, because it might mean a whole lot more analysis, but I do think that it might give us a more rounded result to help us make this decision. Thank you.
Our Manager of Communications, Ms. Bowers.
Musical chairs for me, Madam Mayor, thanks very much. Just to provide Councillor Watton some assurance on that, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'll just share this morning I did action 2 emails, one to the Port Perry Seniors Club, and I did receive a response back. I also provided them hard copies. So I provided them the links, direct links, if she'd like to email that out to their strong membership base, so she agreed to that. I also put a copy of both surveys, 30 each, at the front counter, so she was popping by today to pick that up. I also engaged the Canterbury Commons group as well, and they've put it to their board for consideration for hard copies to be distributed.
Terrific, thank you.
And that's both surveys that are out there right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Further, Councillor Watton? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 3 of 8 of the report, or page 525, it speaks to, at this point, any potential appeal process regarding an AGCO decision has yet to be finalized. Do we have any idea when they plan on having this process finalized?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Over the last month or so, they have provided minimal information to municipalities on this matter, and it's been coming out in dribs and drabs to the municipalities. So one of the issues that we have to deal with prior to bringing forward a final report on this matter prior to January 22nd is to continue following up with the province to fully understand the implications to this action.
Thank you. And further on page 527, in regards to the edibles and opting out, where it speaks to the fused products such as edibles and drinkables have not been addressed by current legislation. I'm sure we have some businesses here in town which would be interested in opting into something like this. When will that legislation be addressed? Will that be in time for our decision that we need to make in January?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, my understanding is that portion of the legislation won't be released until sometime next year, so it'll be after January 22nd.
So then the decision that we make for opting in or out we will be making excluding edibles, or it will be including edibles, but we don't know what the legislation would be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, at this point in time, we do not know. That's an outstanding issue that we identified in the staff report, and we're going to continue pursuing that with the province.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Further questions, Councillor McDougall?
Through you, Madam Mayor, is it my understanding that this report is dealing with the sale, not actually the consumption or smoking of the said products?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, that's correct. It's the retail sale of cannabis.
So
it's not the actual smoking of cannabis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so that's actually where it could be consumed, i.e. smoking, is up to us to regulate, possibly otherwise.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, staff will be bringing forward a smoking bylaw in conjunction with the recommendation report prior to January 22nd for council's consideration.
Thank you.
Anything further? To the motion then, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, reserve and reserve fund policy, number 9.2.11, and that's on page 534. And, that was, Councillor Kiesebrink and Councillor Guido that brought that forward. Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much to our Director of Finance for this report, and I think it's great that we can work with maintaining our reserves and implementing some new reserves and moving out some older ones. We haven't looked at this since 2000, so that's wonderful. My one comment was that on page 536, 2.3, new reserves, we are proposing that we implement a facility and building reserve. And then on 2.4, we do have a building reserve, but that's a legislated, as I understand it from you, Director, that's a legislated building reserve, which is very different from the other, and I'm wondering if we could perhaps just rename that building reserve so it doesn't look like we're basically allocating funds twice to buildings.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kiesebrink. That's a great point. This building reserve, the existing one, has to do with legislation and is required. So I can propose to rename that to Building Code Administration Reserve.
Perfect. If that would be great.
Okay, Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 535, or 2 of 7 of the report, the bottom paragraph speaks to the identification through our asset management plan of significant infrastructure deficits of streetlights. Will this not be addressed during our LED conversion, or is there a different deficiency of streetlights?
To you, Madam Mayor, it's all part and parcel to, so the streetlights themselves will be addressed through the LED streetlight program, but my understanding is that's just the Cobra heads that may not entitle the poles. But in conjunction with the road system, streetlights are part of that whole system, so it is included. When the asset management plan was done, those were included as a road system issue, so that's why they're grouped into that.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, oh, yes, on page 537, 2.5, the reserve targets, number 2, the election reserve, says this reserve should be funded annually through the operating budget, and the total target shall be equal to the estimated total cost of the election. Is that estimated cost the cost used for the previous election, or how do you determine the estimation for the cost?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Guido. So we do look at, so we will be looking at this year's budget, what it costs to run our election, and typically we would spread the cost over the 4 years coming up to the next election so that there's not a spike and then a drop off in the operating budget. So for the 2018 election, we had a $120,000 budget. So based on, the clerk will look at, based on the recommendations, what type of election we're looking to propose, and looking at the costs. So he would probably survey other municipalities to see if we are looking to change, what the cost to run the election would be, and that's how we would build this budget moving forward, and then split it in 4 equal tranches.
So then that estimation will be available for the 2019 budgeting?
I hope so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion is that report FIN 2018-025, Reserve and Reserve Fund Policy be received, and that the Reserve and Reserve Fund Policy as shown in Attachment 1 to FIN 2018-025 be approved. Any other questions or comments? Councillor McDougall.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just have a question. I see that there's on page 527, I think it is, the Green Bank Legal Fund Reserve will be removed or depleted in 2018 with no funding source. Will there be another source for funding for that reserve?
To you, Madam Mayor. Typically, we'd look to the operating budget to see if we can accommodate that. If not, then we would look to the municipal projects reserve as the other generic reserve that would be utilized for that. The Green Bank reserves were initially established with revenue that we earned through that fill operation, and that's been fully depleted at this point.
Yeah, I read the motion. I didn't get a mover and a seconder. Councillor Watton, are you moving it? Seconder? Councillor Kieserbrink? Councillor Watton, did you have a question?
I just, if I might, just wanted to back up to Councillor McDougall's comments. I missed the page and I missed the item.
He's on the hard copy page number, so...
I believe Councillor McDougall may be on the non-revised agenda. Of the revised agenda, it's on page 536, and the non-revised might have been 527, but it is there under 2.3, item number 4.
Thank you. Thank you.
As long as we're all on the same page.
Apparently not. No pun intended. Okay, we good? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. 9.2.14, council remuneration, on page 556. 9.2.14, okay. The recommendations are that report FIN 2018-028, council remuneration, -1/3 tax exemption elimination be received, and that the remuneration provided to council remain at the same net pay with the elimination of the 1/3 tax exemption. That the costs associated with maintaining council net pay to be accommodated within the 2019 budget tax guideline, and that council remuneration be effective at the start of the term of council, and that council salaries be adjusted annually by the cost of living increase identified in the budget. Councillor Brown, you brought this forward?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can suppose for a moment that I'm just the average person in Port Perry, and I hear about an increase in the salaries to the councillors before we've essentially even done anything. And that's putting it sternly, because I know, and we've spoken, I know how hard you've worked, and I know we've been back and forth on a number of informational things. But how do you delicately yet accurately propose to explain to people who are likely going to just see that there's an increase and not understand the reasons, all the reasons why, because there are several?
Director Valentin. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Brown. When staff looked at this, so this came forward in the 2017, I think it was provincial budget, that the government was going to eliminate the 1/3 tax exemption from councillor salary, just to make it more transparent. There were a few options that we looked at, but when we surveyed the area municipalities to see what they were doing, and for instance, Uxbridge had eliminated the 1/3 many years ago, we did an analysis to see what the actual cost would be, but stepping back For an instance, there was a committee, community committee that actually looked at the remuneration of council a few years back, and they did comparators across similar municipalities of size and structure, and the analysis that came back at that point in time was to bring us up to an average. By eliminating this 1/3, we are not proposing an increase to counselors, we're just trying to make you whole at this point. The gross salary will be increased, but the net pay to counselors is the same. So staff recommend and feel that in order to keep you in line with the committee recommendations, that we need to increase the gross and keep the net the same to keep counselors whole.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've read the recommendation. Do I have a mover? Counselor Watton? Seconder? Counselor Guido? Any further comments or questions on this? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.2.18, and it's on page 600. This is the budget guidelines. 9.2. Oh, that's not it. Sorry. 9.2. Okay. The recommendation is that report FIN 2018-032, 2019 budget guideline be received, and that a budget guideline rate of 2.4%, 1.0% special levy dedicated to roads and infrastructure, and 0.05% special levy dedicated to vehicles and equipment be approved. Do I have a mover, please? Mover, Councillor Kiesebrink. Seconder? Councillor Ross. Questions or comments? Who brought that forward? Councillor McDougall, you wanted this pulled.
I just had a question. I just had a question with regards to, again, I believe there was a specific identification to the Greenbank landfill site with, or the legal action in there. Could be straining on the capital cost for any, or sorry, the operating cost for any 1 year of 3 to 4%. My question was back to the reserve fund policy that we just looked at. If it can be allocated through the reserves, why would it tax greatly any one specific year?
Director Madam Mayor, we do have to budget, we do budget in our annual operating budget certain amounts for legal that we could anticipate. If, depending on the outcome, we do want to make council and residents aware that these are pressures that will be put upon our budget. So that's why it's been referenced in the report, just to make you aware that there are still litigations that are ongoing that could impact operating budget, but knowing well that if they're significant, it could come out of the reserves. But I don't know those dollar values, so I wouldn't want to allocate any.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We move now to bylaws, and we just pulled the one bylaw, which is 9.6718 on page 642, and that is the fees and services and activities. We pulled it because the report was pulled, so we're ready to move that now. Do I have a mover to pass this bylaw? Councillor Watton, seconder. Councillor Brown. Any questions or comments on this? It was thoroughly debated. Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. No notices of motion, no new business. 12.1, appointment of deputy mayor. I need a mover that Wilma Watton be appointed as deputy mayor for the term of council to act in place instead of the mayor when she is absent from the municipality or absent through illness or refuses to act, and such appointee shall have and may exercise all the rights and powers and authority of the mayor during such absent or refusal to act. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kiesebrink, seconder. Councillor Guido. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Appointment of acting mayors. I am proposing, we have proposed, that Councilor Jana Guido be appointed as acting mayor for the 2019 and 2020 term of council to act in place instead of the mayor deputy when he/she is absent from the municipality or absent through illness or refuses to act, and such appointee shall have and may exercise all the rights and powers and authority of the mayor during such absence or refusal to act, and that the following members of council be appointed as acting mayor for the 2021 and 2022 term of council to act in place instead of the mayor deputy when he/she is absent from the municipality or absent through illness or refuses to act, and such appointee shall have and may exercise all the rights and powers and authority of the mayor during such absence or refusal to act. And I have made a suggestion which I shared with you, that Councilor Guido be January, February, March. April, May, June would be Councilor Ross. July, August would be Councilor McDougall. September, October, Councilor Kiesebrink, and November, December, Councilor Brown. Do I have a mover for that? Councilor Watton, seconder. Councilor Ross. Everybody understand? Okay. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Appointments to conservation authorities. That the Region of Durham be advised that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Scugog hereby appoints the following members of council as representatives to the respective conservation authorities. Central Lake Ontario Conservation Authority, Councilor McDougall. Kawartha Conservation Authority, there are 2 representatives, Councilor Kiesebrink and Councilor Ross. And Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, Mayor Drew. Do I have a mover for that? Councilor Brown, seconder. Councilor McDougall. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Appointments to township committees and boards. That Mayor Drew is hereby appointed ex officio on all committees and boards in accordance with the procedure bylaw, and that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Scugog hereby appoints the following members of council as representatives and alternates to the respective committees and boards. Blackstock Recreation Complex Advisory Committee, Councilor Watton, and alternate Councilor Ross. Economic Development Advisory Committee, Councilor Guido, alternate Councilor Watton. Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, Mayor Drew, alternate Councilor Guido. Scugog Accessibility Advisory Committee, Councilor Ross, alternate Councilor McDougall. Scugog Environmental Advisory Committee, Councilor McDougall, alternate Councilor Guido. Scugog Grants Advisory Committee, Councilor Guido, alternate Councilor Brown. Scugog Heritage Advisory Committee, Councilor Brown, alternate Councilor Ross. Scugog Housing Advisory Committee, Councilor Watton, alternate Councilor McDougall. Scugog Tourism Advisory Committee, Councilor Kiesebrink, alternate Councilor Watton. Scugog Memorial Public Library Board, Councilor Guido, alternate Councilor Ross. Blackstock Agricultural Society, Councilor Kiesebrink, alternate Councilor Ross. Port Perry Agricultural Society, Councilor McDougall, alternate Councilor Guido. Port Perry Business Improvement Area Board, Councilor Brown, alternate Councilor Kiesebrink. Caesarea Community Hall Board, Councilor Kiesebrink. Green Bank Community Hall Board, Councilor McDougall. Nestleton Community Hall Board, Councilor Kiesebrink. Prince Albert Community Hall Board, Councilor Guido. Seagrave Community Hall Board, Councilor McDougall. Scugog Island Community Hall Board, Councilor Ross. Utica Community Hall Board, Councilor McDougall. Do I have a mover? Director Heritage, I thought you were putting up your hand. Councilor Ross, did I see your hand? Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Guido? Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. No session needed for closed. And now I want to, the confirming bylaw. Do I have wording for that? I'm gonna ask for all in favor, too. Confirming bylaw, that bylaw number 70-18, confirming the proceedings of the special council meeting held Monday, December 10th, 2018, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 10th day of December 2018, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Do I have a mover for the confirming bylaw? Councillor Brown? Seconder? Councillor McDougall? Questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And now I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido? All those in favor? Do I need a seconder for okay. Seconder, please. Councillor Kieserbrink. All those in favor?
There we go.
That's great. Thank you very much. 4 o'clock.
Yeah, good job, everybody, good job.
Yeah, okay. That is 685 page agenda done in 2.5